Hello, everyone. I'll wait a little bit to get the chat going. It's always great. It sends out announcements, lets everyone know we are live. For those of you doing the replay, welcome. It's been a minute. I'm still here. I just haven't done a lot of videos recently, but there's been good reason. I've been head down creating my membership platform, and so there's been plenty going on. Jake, how are you? Good to see you. All right, congratulations. So just wanted to. I'm doing good. It's been an interesting. I want to say a couple of months, but Gifted Healer of the Soul asked how I was doing. I hope you are doing well. It's been kind of a whirlwind. At the end of the year, my whole family had COVID. Everybody was okay. But that was during the holidays, and so that was exciting. And then just all kinds of work going on and trying to keep things moving forward. In addition to, like I had just mentioned, is creating the membership site. So I've been head down, still here. Creating and just building stuff, and it's all behind the scenes. I'm hoping to, within the next 30, 60 days, to launch this. And so if you're watching this on the replay, I guess it could actually be, it could be happening. I'm just reading the comments. So good to see everybody. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'm here for a little bit. It's actually pretty late. It's about 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, and I'm doing some work here in the office. And I wanted to go online. I haven't been online live for a while. So Derek, our baby is 10 days old. It's been tough as expected, but everyone keeps saying it will get easier. What are your thoughts on what gets easier and what doesn't? What gets easier is that you get into a routine. Anything that is not familiar can be difficult. And so I think that's part of it. It's the unfamiliarity and not knowing, what to do and what comes next, and, how to handle certain situations. And I think that's why it gets easier. Psychologically, it just changes. It's funny. My children are 13 and 11, and to say it's easier, there are elements of it that are easier. My kids are pretty self-sufficient. They can do things on their own, and independence. But the just issues as a parent change, and so I think it is your attitude about it and how you handle it. But when your baby's 10 days old, it's like you're just figuring out how to do all this stuff. Everything is brand new, and so I can imagine. That's difficult, but, sleep gets a little bit easier. Your routine gets it a little easier. That's why I'd say make sure you have a routine. But, parenting isn't easy. I think for those who say it, like there's elements of it, it doesn't mean it's not wonderful, but it's not an easy thing. Maybe for those who think that it's easy, maybe all elements of their life are easy and it's just their attitude towards it. Oftentimes we make things much more difficult than they need be. I am guilty of that. So hopefully that helps. House the Singer, hello, good to see you. Astro B, Chris, God, good to see everybody on here. So Astro B asks, hey, do some mothers hate the dad after birth? Seems I can't breathe or look in her direction. Here's the thing is, that could be some other things going on. It could be postpartum depression. I would say that, calmly you have a conversation about that and see, kind of what that is. If it is really bad, then I suggest, you get some professional help and try to, part of it, what I can say is, from your perspective, is try to put yourself in her shoes. I talk a lot about empathy on my channel. We men just aren't that good at that. And so pretend you are in her position. You just had the baby physically, emotionally, mentally. She's going through changes just as you did. She has to transition, and like, a baby typically it's so demanding for the mother, especially if she's breastfeeding and getting up in the night and such. So I think that's probably the first step, is just try to be empathetic. And like I said, if it is really a problem, I mean, there's a real deep issue, first you have to talk about it. And if she's not willing to talk about it, then that's something else. But maybe seek some outside help, and it's just so that she can talk to somebody. And the other thing too, is just to make sure she has other people around, or a network, whether that's family or friends, or a lot of it can be very secluded, especially with COVID. But just when you are a parent, a brand new parent, sometimes you feel alone. Sometimes you feel like you're the only one doing this, and you're doing it 24/7. So it's House the Singer. How long is tummy time? I don't necessarily have an answer for that. I often say is that I consider myself more of a dad expert than a baby expert. I know that sounds kind of weird, but and the reason for that, not that all men aren't different, but all babies are different. Some babies love being on their tummy, like, or and love doing taking a bath, and then there's other ones that hate it. There's other ones that just can't stand it and they don't enjoy it. I would talk to maybe a pediatrician to see that if there's a reason why. It could be that it's uncomfortable. Imagine like you have gas, or the timing that you do it. Maybe you're doing it like right after food, or try it different before food, or right after he or she wakes up. Try different times, and different situations. Because it could be something that's uncomfortable, or just quite frankly they don't like it. I don't know, if a child doesn't like it, I don't know that there's going to be any like huge ramifications. I mean, the reason I think, a lot of doctors recommend it is, just for like dexterity and for being able to sort of move and stretch and stuff. But I don't know. Tummy time wasn't a big thing in our house. It just wasn't. Like, we didn't make a big deal about it. But I would talk to maybe a pediatrician and ask if there's any other questions with that. Sorry. But you're also asking how early to start. That I don't know either. Let's see. So Jake's asks, what would you do if you have a 2.5-year-old that needs to transition to a toddler bed, but we have a newborn coming in a month? Wait until the baby is about 6 months and then transition the 3-year-old? I don't know if the transition has any effect, or should be determined based on the newborn. I know you might, because of like room, or how, like, what you're buying or something, but from like a development standpoint, the transition can happen at any time that, you and, your spouse, or, and then the baby feels comfortable. I'm trying to remember. Wow. I'm trying to remember the timing for our children. If I recall, my son just didn't want to be in a different bed. He just liked his crib. I mean, even he could get out of it. He could climb in it. He liked it. But eventually it's like, okay. And we talked about a larger bed, and how, I think part of it is understanding it too. I mean, if your 2.5-year-old understands and saying, hey, we're going to get you a bed that you can walk right into yourself. And, if they're ready for it, then I think that that's okay. But I don't know about waiting as a result of the baby. I would say just transition when you feel comfortable transitioning, and when the child feels, comfortable. Maybe some feedback from the audience here. Dane said, we transitioned our toddler at 13 months. So I mean, I think you could do it. So yeah, I mean, some people have some feedback here. Here's the thing too. When my children were 1 and 3, so my son was 3, I was not in, I wasn't in a great state. I mean, this, if you go back and you look at sort of the whole reason I started Dad University, I said I wasn't a baby expert and I didn't become a baby expert. I really, what Dad University was about was working on myself, and becoming a father that I wanted to be, becoming the person that I wanted to be, and then, being involved in that. So I started taking classes. My first parenting classes were around 1 and 3. And so prior to that, a lot of my activity was just, what do you need? I sort of, my wife was working labor and delivery. So she was very familiar with babies and such. And so a lot of the stuff was handled by her, being honest. And so I just would say, hey, what do you need me to do? And when you're in that state, you're not really thinking about or have an opinion so much about a lot of things, like, oh, we should really do this or we should really do that. And so that's where I began, and so as my children got older and started communication and discipline and quote parenting, that's when I really started getting involved. I'd say involved. It's not like I wasn't an involved parent, but I was involved with my children. But I think some of that early time, I really leaned on my wife because I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never been around children. If you see my story, I'd never been around children. I really was unfamiliar with it. And so it wasn't until, my children started growing, I started taking classes, started learning more, teaching, started doing a podcast to support other dads and myself, and then, started moving farther and farther and farther. So it was really about me and what I could do and what is my role and how do I impact my children, more so than, a crib issue or potty training or like that kind of thing. And I know a lot of people ask those questions, and I appreciate that. But I also don't want to say something, because so much of it is my opinion in that sense. And there's so many different ways of doing things, whether it is sleep, whether it is, feedings. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Now, when it comes to discipline and the parenting and the communication, that stuff, I have really strong opinions, and that's the stuff that I make videos on. So that's all. I mean, it wasn't a mini rant. Yeah. So John had said, I know you're not a stay-at-home father. So, yeah, I mean, I worked a lot. I'm an entrepreneur. I had a business. I still do. And it's yeah, it was a very, very interesting time. My mother passed away. I mean, the early years of my kids, it's somewhat blurry, just because of how many things were happening at that time. Let's see. If you guys have questions, throw them up there. Also, let me know where you're from. I always like to see where. So Chris, I'm currently in the beginning stage of a separation after 6 years of marriage. We have a 4-year-old girl. What advice can you give me as a dad? Well, I'm going to assume that you want to be separated. There's many different questions here, or things to go into. If it's something where you still feel like there is a chance to reconcile the marriage, then, obviously you can go down that road. If it is something where you are done, you're going down that road, then the advice as a father is maintain a very cordial and respectful relationship with your wife, regardless of how your emotions might be. Everybody I talk to that's getting divorced is blaming the other person. And it is difficult sometimes, especially if there's emotional hurt or, just all kinds of stuff that can happen. But maintaining a really good relationship that's respectful with your significant other is very important to the child. And I don't think people realize that, versus just thinking that it's just their relationship with the child. For children as they grow up, huge amounts of conflict or or like you just resent the other person or the other person talks bad about it. Like none of that is good for a child. It is good for a child to be in a loving, caring environment and to explain, it has nothing to do with the child and it's not, and they have to be very clear about that. I mean, at 4, they may or may not know, what's going on. They sort of know, hey, I go to dad's house, I go to mom's house. But I do think maintaining that respect, even if you have real difficulty with it, you're doing it because of the child, not because of her, not because anything else. You're doing that so that the child can have that stability, and that stability in knowing, okay, well, mom and dad, and even later as they get older, you know what, mom and dad didn't get along, they got divorced, but at least they were nice to each other, because you're showing your girl too, how to treat somebody, and how people deserve to be treated, and everybody deserves that. And I know it is hard. I mean, it is not an easy thing. It's easier said than done, but that would be my advice. Try as hard as you can to be respectful and cordial, and ask the same of her, although you may not be able to. But this, you do you, even let's say she's really evil, doesn't matter. Your children will eventually figure that out. But yeah, I do wish people would be able to sometimes get past the emotion of that and realize how important it is for the kids. So, so I know you're not a stay-at-home, but what can be expected to do with a baby all day, every day? Is a baby playing in a pack and play okay for a period of time? Yeah. I mean, a baby needs to know how to entertain themselves. I mean, a baby being bored is totally acceptable. Instead of sticking an iPad or, sticking them in front of the TV, it's like, it's okay for them to be creative and do, give them a books or stuffed animals or whatever, or little toys, like totally fine. I also think that, they could be brought places. It's, they're adaptable. Obviously, boredom for kids is actually good for their brains. Cause, then they're able to be creative. I mean, now kids have so much dang stimulation. It's like, they can't sit for 2 seconds without a screen. So yeah, I think, that's totally fine. I know my wife, when they were really young, and it depends on your financial situation, but we live near the coast. I mean, she brought them all the time to the beach, to the park, we had a season pass at a amusement park. And I mean, she just planned, okay, Monday we're doing this, Tuesday we're doing this, Wednesday, and it's just for her to get out of the house and to do that. And she would do that. And so, she didn't want to be bored sitting in a house. And so, yeah, I mean, she would get out, even if it was for walks, just to get out and do that. And the other thing is finding other people too. I mean, depending on the age of the child, as a baby, it can be tough, but, the age of the child is, you get together with other people that have similar. The babies may not play, but, you join a mom or dad's group, that usually helps. Wow, a bunch of questions coming through. Derek asks, this is a popular one. How do I balance between the time with the wife, time with the baby, work, home responsibilities, and my own interests? So I have a couple videos on that. Work-life harmony. I've done work-life balance. It's actually one of the courses that's going to be in the membership. I have a full course on it. For those of you who are not aware, I'm creating a membership to Dad University and going to be releasing all of my course material and creating more course material as it goes. It's going to be a monthly membership, and that is coming within the next 30 to 60 days. So that's what I've been working on. That's why I haven't been making new videos very recently and haven't been on lives, is because I have been pretty much head down doing that. So but I'll give you some quick tips. So how do you balance it? Well, first, you need to kind of take an inventory of your time, and also so to figure out where could you be wasting time. Now, not that TV or the internet and social media, whatever, is not your interests or your time, but you do have to give up when you have a small child, especially, some of the wasted time that you might be doing. And then you start prioritizing. I don't like to call it a work-life balance. I call it work-life harmony. And so I'll give you an example. It is 6:45 on a Tuesday. I'm not with my family right now. I'm here. Well, I was with my kids earlier. So I had spent a little time, and then I was like, okay, I got to get some work done, and I'm at my office. So, it's different for everybody. And the demands are different for everybody, but you have to feel good about it. And you ultimately have to feel good. Feeling guilty about things isn't good. I will say, and this is coming from an entrepreneur, that nobody on their deathbed ever said they should have spent more time at the office. That's for sure. They'll say that they should have spent more time with the people that they loved and the people that they enjoyed and the things that they, love to do. So, I'm an entrepreneur. I pursue a lot of, business related things, and I spend a lot of time on it. But it is a balance. Like this weekend, I'm going camping with my daughter. That's something. Then I take that time, and you have to just segment it and take the time to do it. And the coolest part about all of it is that every day you get to start over. So while you might be a really good employee one day, because you stayed late and you work an extra hours, whatever, well, you didn't have dinner with your family, or you didn't spend time with your wife, or, anything like that, or you didn't get the chance to work out. I will say too, for your own interest, depending on what they are, I wake up really, really early in the morning because I like to work out. I like to exercise. And so that's my time. And as a result, I get less sleep, or I have to go to sleep really early because I want to exercise. It's just a priority. It's a priority for me. So we each set our own priorities. And that's what I kind of do that in the videos where I talk about, you got to set your priorities. What's the most important thing to you, and allocate that time. If you have to use a calendar, put your kids on the calendar, put your wife on the calendar. May say, hey, we're going to be hanging out here and here. I want to make time for you here. If she doesn't like that, then don't tell her. Just do it. But yeah, I think it's different for everybody. And and I do notice that as my children get older, but also I get older, I realize like that time is gone. The time is no longer there. So you don't want to waste that either. You don't want to waste that time. So it becomes more and more important. I mean, the other day, it was my son. He had asked me, he said, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, oh yeah, for sure. Like he wanted to exercise or something. I was just like, yeah, he's 13. It's like, he's not coming up to me and asking me to do things a lot. He wants to hang out with his friends. And so you have to be aware of that. I had other stuff I wanted to do or I was going to do, but I just scrap it, and you have to remember those times where you just got to make it a priority. So hopefully that helps. Sometimes my questions I answer so long-winded. I could probably do it in Twitter, 160 characters. Wow, let's see. I'm just reading it here. Excuse the silence. Ryan, good to see you. Dane, good to see you. Justin, good to see you. Eric, good to see you. Andy, any tips on how to work on generational trauma with raising children? I would suggest seeking a therapist for that. Now, there's good and bad about therapists. Now, here's what I will say. I think therapists are awesome. I mean, going to therapy is awesome, especially to work through issues. What I don't necessarily like is too much focus on the past. Now, I understand past happens, but past doesn't equal the future. And so much of what we do, our pain, our, the things that we think of and all the crap that happens to us never happens, but also is a result of what's happened to us in the past. And so it's a fine line too that, I'm always careful of focusing and because you never want that to be a crutch, because what happened in the past does not define you. It's not who you are. It's not nothing. It happened in the past, and there's nothing you can do about it other than learning how to, whether it is work through it and such. And I think for many that a therapist is probably your best, and so hopefully you can see somebody. I mean, for me to give very specific tips, I think it depends on the trauma, and I don't necessarily want to go into that for this video, but yeah, I mean, and if it's a financial thing, I mean, you could go through insurance, you can go through sometimes the state or religious organization or a community organization. I think that might be better, suited for something like that, but I don't want to leave you hanging on it. It's, that could be some serious stuff. You work through it, but just know that your past doesn't equal the present and certainly doesn't equal your child's future. It is certainly possible to get through that trauma and not allow your children to be affected by that. So Eric, Eric had asked, any advice regarding feeling unprepared and inadequate as a provider? I think that's a very common feeling. And I don't think that in many times that feeling, sometimes it doesn't matter what level you are at, in the sense that, some people may have more money, other people have more emotional support, other people have more the ability to be there physically. I think that is something that all parents feel at some point, is feeling inadequate. I can tell you that is part of the motivation of what I started Dad University for, is I felt, as much as I had a wonderful childhood, I had wonderful parents, great siblings. I mean, I had what would be considered like a very, like, I don't want to say privilege because we weren't wealthy, but, very grateful to have the childhood that I had. It was very, very good. Doesn't matter. I still didn't know how to be a father. Granted, I saw a loving father. My father was a good father, but I had a better chance of doing it than someone who didn't have a father or had a negative impact. But I still felt inadequate. I didn't feel like I was going to be a good father because I didn't know what to do. So I think your feelings, the first thing is to realize is that they're totally normal, very common. And that's kind of the first step, is just to realize that everybody feels that way. I think the other thing you can do is, think about the steps that you can take and what it would take for you to not feel that way. It's all external stuff. And you say, well, I make this much money, but if I was making this much, well, could you find a different job? Let's just say it's financial. I don't even know that you're saying inadequate as a provider. Typically that's financial. Could you work on the side? Could you do a side hustle? Most of the time the answer is yes. Whether you want to do it or you feel like you should do it or you're going to do it, that's a totally different thing. But side hustles, that can do it. Get a better job. If you don't feel that you don't have the skills to get a better job, get the skills. And I want to do a little bit of tough love, and that there's not a lot of excuses that are valid, because you can see, the only excuse is that somebody just doesn't want to typically. I mean, if you're not physically able to, and people say, well, I don't have the time. Most of us can find the time. It's about priority, and so what is it going to take for you to feel like you are a good provider? What I will tell you, and I hope men hear this, kids don't care about stuff. And I see this all the time. And I see, and especially during the holidays, men feel like they have to get their children presents, and a lot of them, and whether it's birthdays and whether it is the holidays, that they have to do all of these things and get them all these gifts. And it's BS. Kids don't care. The only reason they really care is because we start to get them gifts and everyone else around them is getting gifts. Now, there's nothing wrong with a child being a little bit deprived of stuff. So the idea is, instead of going to Disneyland, you know what? You can go to a park and have a really good time at a park and it costs nothing. You can go out for a walk and you can do these things. The kids just really don't care. And I can tell you, as it became to the holidays and my wife and I agreed on this, we were really frustrated. And I can tell you, I live in a fairly affluent area where kids get ridiculous amounts of stuff. And my children know, because we've done it. And hey, sometimes I honestly, I do feel bad, is that we've said we're going to go do something instead. And we don't do extravagant gifts. They want to get something, they're going to have to earn that. It's not that I don't have the money to do it. I'm not going to do it because there's just no reason for them to have that kind of stuff. And I think what happens is that there's some sort of validation for men feeling as if the providing is like that they're a good father because they are giving them things. And it just isn't the case. I mean, you think about your own childhood and the things that you remember that your parents gave you. I would doubt that there's many different things that you would remember. You remember the things that you guys did or the experiences or the, getting together. It's not the stuff. And so I think as a provider, it just doesn't, I don't think it affects people in such a negative way that people think. I know quite a few people that grew up with very little. If anything, it just gave them some grit. They started working hard. They realized they weren't going to get things handed to them. So I don't know. I think we're very hard on ourselves, as somebody had pointed out. I think Dane was in there pointing out that, we're very hard on ourselves. And I think as men, providing, meaning, okay, they have a roof overhead and stuff. And hey, I'm guilty too. I fall into that all the time. I mean, I saw, all these people going on extravagant vacations and I'm like, well, we just aren't going to do that. So I think you have to give yourself some credit, work hard. You are a good provider and feel that you can provide them. There's a lot more value in the love that you can probably provide than the stuff. So, give them your time. That's probably the most valuable thing and we used to do that too. I remember my parents, I grew up modest and we would give coupons to each other, coupon to go hang out and go do something or to spend time playing a game or whatever. And it didn't cost very much. You can be pretty creative. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I think we're just too tough on ourselves. All right. Sorry. Let's see. Getting back here. Let's see. Wow. I missed a lot. Scott, thank you. I appreciate the kudos there. Best tips on going from crib to toddler bed. I don't have any specific tips. We just missed a whole conversation about going to the toddler bed. Just do it. Be patient. It's going to be, it can be a transition, but sometimes you have the bed there and you ask them. And I mean, our child was ready. They were asking for it. So maybe I'm not the best person to give that advice. Aaron, good to see you. Glad the videos helped. Mav to UAC. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing it correctly. If you just found out you're a dad and your partner is concerned, how do you reassure them everything will be fine? Ask them. Ask them and say, how can I reassure you that everything is going to be fine? What can I do? Let them answer that question because every partner is different. Someone would say, well, I want you to spend time with me. The other one's going to say, just tell me it's going to be okay. The other person, there's too many answers that your specific partner needs to answer it themselves. And if they say, I don't know, then you say, well, what if you did know? What would you say? I say that to my kids all the time. Dane, what's your opinion on gentle or respectful parenting? I don't know if I haven't heard that specific term, the gentle, respectful parenting. But authoritative parenting is, really the style that I go of, which I think is more firm yet respectful. I'm not really a gentle person. That's great if you are. I haven't read enough literature on the gentleness. But sometimes it's really hard when you're setting up boundaries and you're saying no, and you have to, I do think you need to be firm. People get that the wrong way though. It's firm and yet respectful. You listen. So I don't know. It's really the gentle word is probably the one that I'm not, as keen on. I think some of the difficulty is if you are too gentle, your children aren't going to understand how to deal with the real people in the world because people aren't gentle. I think, I don't know, but that's just my own opinion. I don't know that I'm just not gentle, I guess. So it's hard for me to like something. So it says it's such an awful name, but it's about walking the kids through the emotions versus trying to get them past it. Well, okay. Well, if you're talking about emotions, I do think, kids learning emotions and what that, I definitely don't believe in trying to avoid emotion. I believe in understanding emotions, feeling those emotions, and then, allowing yourself to feel the emotion. And then as a result of that, over time, you become less vulnerable to the emotion. And I can give you, my own personal anecdote, is being, practicing all this stuff over and over and over again. I used to go in a cocoon. Let's say my wife and I, argued. I just, this is even prior to kids, is I would go into hibernation mode. I'd be pissed off at her. I wouldn't talk to her, on and on and on and on and on. And I would be angry and whatever it is. So the difference now, with almost anything that I get upset at, if it's a thing that I'm getting upset at, is I kind of now look at it and go, okay, well, let me feel that. So I might feel the anger, I might feel whatever, and I allow myself to feel it, which is one of the things. And then I realize that after doing this kind of exercise all the time of allowing myself to feel that emotion, it doesn't last very long anymore. I kind of ask myself, is what's the benefit of me being pissed off all day? What is the benefit of that? What, people are going to pay attention to me? My wife's going to get, it digs into her. What is the benefit to me of me being upset? And the answer is nothing. There is no benefit to me being upset all day or multiple days. And so as a result of that, I've come to learn that just resolve things, whether it's, whether I'm at fault or shit, sometimes it's just, or even with my kids, it's okay, we got upset, we did it, let's get through it. So I definitely don't like the idea of avoiding emotions. So I do like that idea of walking or talking through it. So I don't know about gentle. It is an awful name. Bap Jap. Are the terrible twos a myth? No, they're not. But for our kids, I felt like the terrible threes and horrible fours. Three was rough. Two wasn't that bad. Kind of 3 and 4 was probably the worst. Um, Matthew, good to see you. Future dad here, wife 27 weeks along, helping with the baby shower, registry for gifts, baby classes, sign up, running on ice cream runs. Any tips on how to handle and deal with all this stress? Smile. No. Yeah, I mean, how to deal with it. Know that it's temporary. Somebody, I think it's Mel, if you ever heard Mel Robbins, and she was talking about how stress and excitement are actually the same thing happens to our bodies. We get heightened heart rate, we might sweat, nervous. So maybe you could translate that stress into thinking that it is excitement. And maybe that would help. So that's what I would try. Because otherwise, you could also hire a virtual assistant, for $5 an hour or $7 an hour and have them do all those things for you, or get somebody else, if you have the means to do it, get somebody else to do it all for you. Although she might not like that, but that's an option. Let's see. Andy has asked, how do you deal with newborns that fight being swaddled? Well, one, I would say make sure you're doing it correctly. I don't know that most babies don't like it. The question being, if a baby really hates it, I don't know what motivation there is to swaddle other than them, you're feeling like they're safe and contained. Most of the time, the swaddling that I understood is like, the swaddling is done so that the baby feels good and feels safe and feels content. And as a result is more calm. If that's not working, you probably have to try something different, that maybe swaddling is not their thing. You try a vibrating seat, or, I know with our children, putting them at an angle, I mean, there's a reason why the angle works. The digestion was better. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on the idea that you can influence what gender your baby will be based on during the woman's cycle? I don't know that. If that is, I know that there was like people hanging upside down to conceive a boy. I don't know if those are just wives' tales or what. That would be interesting. Maybe there's some studies out there, but I'm not familiar with, short of maybe doing, some really expensive DNA manipulation, or, egg and sperm manipulation. I don't know that you can do that. That's interesting though. Some other people, if you have questions, I can see that other people are answering the questions, which is good. It's helpful. Thank you. Josh had asked, how do I tell my wife that I want another baby? Depends on, the way that I see that is that you don't think that she does want one. So is there a tactic? You might know your wife best. I don't know that there's a very specific way to say it other than just be honest. It's funny. My wife and I have, maybe it's a little bit different relationship, but we're somewhat blunt about it. It's like we don't beat around the bush. I think that there is maybe some tactful ways of doing it. And I think I've always heard like the sandwich method, where you say something really loving and wonderful that she's going to want to hear. Then you say something like, hey, I'd love to have another baby. And then you say something else that's wonderful that you want to hear. Like, maybe the first thing could be just, it's been amazing having a child with you. And it's something that I've really, really enjoyed, blah, blah. And so you say that's the top part. And then you go into, and, I've just been thinking, or you know what? Oh, now I get it. Ask the question instead of telling her that you want it. That's kind of the indirect way of doing it. So you'd say, hey, do the sandwich thing again, but to say, I love it, whatever. have you even considered, or what do you think about having another child? How does what do you think about that? Then and then she might say, "Why are you thinking?" And say, "Well, I just had, had thought about the idea." And then you'll go into it and you'll have that discussion. Hopefully it shouldn't be a difficult discussion to have. Maybe it is for some people, but the answer is either going to be yes or no. I think it's a bigger thing is if she says no, how do you handle that? And I don't know if that's really a good way to handle it. So, um, so what? Thank you. My wife and I, let's see. Oh, why is this thing going? Oh, here we go. Sorry, my chats. My wife and I are having our first baby, a girl, in about 6 weeks. What's the best tactic to take to raise her not to be a spoiled brat? There's quite a few. So the one thing I will say is that you have a couple of years really to ingrain that. You don't give them everything. That's another thing. And the other thing is that you allow them to do things for themselves. So, and you think about that at a very early age. So like when your child is old enough to like take a piece of trash and throw it away, like they can walk, they should be doing that for their own food. Like they take the trash, they put it away, or they pick up their toy and they put it away. That to me is one of the best tactics and you're not, and the reason we do stuff for our children is because we love them and we think that like we're sorry, we express our love that way by doing things for them. And we're not helping them. We allow them to do things for themselves. And so from a very early age, we had our children, cleaning. I mean, maybe you help them, but I'm saying they clean up their stuff. They even making their own food. I mean, even at a very early age, allowing them to, hold something so that they can, pour it, or it's just giving them that ability to do things for themselves versus expecting that somebody else is going to do it. So that's the one kind of like demanding brat. And I think of like a spoiled in that case. The other, a lot of people think of spoiled brat as like you get whatever you want as far as like material things. And a lot of that onus is going to be on you. You just don't give them, I mean, you just don't do it. You don't, they may want a toy, but you teach them that they can't have that toy, or that, maybe they need to work for it. Early on, when we started talking about responsibilities around our house, we don't, I should clarify, we don't have allowance. My children receive money, but it's simply because they are part of our family, and then they get to choose, what. Then on the separate side, they have their responsibilities that they need to do, and cleaning and sweeping and, other things. It's not tied to it. Like you get 50 cents for this and $1 for this and whatever. To me, they're two very separate things. They just need to be part of the family, which being part of the family means you clean up, and you chip in and you help. And so it is really, those are the things I'd say. You have them do things for themselves, and you require them to do things around the house and help in with the family and stuff. And, the fact that you're asking the question is probably an indication that they're not going to be spoiled brats. But that's typically how it happens. Children get what they want. The parent gives them what they want. They don't do much for themselves. And as a result, they're spoiled. So hopefully that helps. Let me know. Let's see. Wow, there's so much. Oh, what happened to my window? Oh, there we go. My window's not closing. Oh, no. Oh, I can't figure this out. Okay. Well, anyways, I'll see what I can. There we go. Maybe there's some delay. All right. Sorry, I missed some of these questions. So Josh had asked, what are your thoughts on having babies late in life? And what advice would you give a new dad at almost 40? What am I in for? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we're more typically more established, more financially independent, later in life. I think the only part that I can think of as, I get a little older is just feeling like the energy level, is that, just the young children take a lot of energy. They require a lot of time and energy and effort. And so as you get older, sometimes that just becomes a little bit more difficult. You're a little bit more set in your ways. That can be the case. But I think for women, it's a physical thing. I mean, it's, there's more risks in pregnancy as they get older. So, with men, that's not the case, but with women, there's actually increased risk of having issues. So, but with men, you should be fine. What are you in for? I think the only difference is just, you're a little bit more mature. Sometimes, you might not be a peer with the other kids at their, preschool or kindergarten. So when they first go to school and you're sort of talking to the other parents and you are definitely an older parent, that I felt that way a little bit in ours. I mean, it seemed like most of the parents were a little younger than I was. And so, they would kind of get together or do stuff. And it's like, just a little bit off. Like I kind of felt like I was hanging out with younger people. So that could just be a little bit of difference. I don't think it would be that big of a deal though. All right. Oh, wow. It's already been 52 minutes. I got a little bit of time here. I had promised myself an hour, so I've got a couple more minutes. Josh, you're welcome. So what had asked, when I say no, stick with our word. Yes. I mean, that is follow through. So, okay, we're going back to, how not to have a spoiled brat. Yes. I mean, the other is you follow through with what you do. I think of that more as a discipline type thing. It didn't click to me as a spoiled brat. When I think of like, you have to do what you say and say what you do. And so, yeah, I mean, when you say, hey, on the count of 3, we're not going, you got to make sure on the count of 3, you're not going, or, you say, hey, you have one more chance for this and you don't, nothing. I mean, yeah, your child, that's more disciplinarian and kind of falls under that for me. So Starlighted, thank you. I appreciate you sending the videos to your boyfriend. Dave, you're welcome. Daniel, glad to have you here. Let's see. I'm trying to answer some of these. So I had mentioned earlier, and I hope people will join. I am creating a membership website, and the biggest thing I think for the membership is you'll have access to all the courses. I have a whole bunch of different courses that I have. And so you'll have access to those. You'll have access to chats like this more. And then also be able to chat with the other dads who are members. And so I'm hoping, for those of you who come on to these things, it's going to be, a very low cost in comparison to some of the things I've done in the past. And so I'm excited about it. I'm working hard. I think it's going to, I hope, launch within the next 30 to 60 days. I will announce it. If you want to know about it, though, go to the website and get on the waiting list. Those are the people that will have the first, chances of getting in. And I'll make sure that I keep the information. So you can just go to daduniversity.com. And I think it's right on the front page. It talks about join the wait list. Just click there, fill out your email, and you'll be notified when the membership launches. And so As of right now, it's going to be $20 a month. So I can't quote it, can't for sure, but that's about the price. And so hopefully, and that I think is a value where, I'm hoping that people are going to get a lot of value out of it. So, Mr. Longman from New Zealand, good to see you. It's so cool to see people from all over the world. I know that, I'm here in San Diego, so North San Diego, actually. And so it's kind of cool to see people from all over the world come and join us, and seeing men that are interested in this stuff. That's what's great. Some people don't think that it's, that there's men out there who care, and there's a lot. Gabrielle said, how can you deal with the stress with trying to have a baby? Like worrying too much if the baby is healthy or stuff like that. To be more clear, I try to be calm, but any kind of thoughts get to me. Yeah, someone once said that the worst things that ever happened, or something like that, like the worst things that ever happened actually never happened to me, or the worst things. We create so much of it in our minds, and it's so true. It's a practice, I just listened to another, as I mentioned her earlier, Mel Robbins, and she said, when you have anxiety, which is worrying about something that's going to happen, there's only 6 words that you have to remember. She just released this. It was on YouTube. And it was, what if it all works out? And you say that over and over and over again. So instead of something being horrible, you allow yourself to say, well, what if it does work out? And you keep saying that over and over and over again. And it's a positive thought. And I like it. In fact, I've already used it a couple times today, that I had some, stressful, anxiety, negative things. And instead I say, well, what if it works out? And it does. It kind of changes your mindset. So let's see. Yeah. So what had said, I witnessed my best friend create a monster every time their daughter cried. They would buy her things just to make her happy when she was a toddler. Yeah. If you watch my videos, that wouldn't be the suggestions that I would make. Any of my videos on discipline or, and I said, I'll have them in the membership. I have the courses around this stuff. So I have a course around work-life balance. There's a course around discipline. There's a course around mistakes that we make as fathers. Wow. I mean, there's so many different things, that it'll be, I'm hoping everyone gets a lot of value out of it. From Brooklyn, Chris, how are you? Texas. Wow. That's cool. And so here, closing it out, anyone has any final questions, let me know. But like I said, go and make sure, sign up for the wait list, check it out. It's, the membership will be coming soon. I'm excited to be able to launch that. And it's a lot of work. I don't know if you can see the reds in my eyes, certainly the gray hair from the stress. But it's been fun and it's been a lot of work. So I'm excited to launch it. Florida, Eric, good to see you. Great questions tonight too. And I do hope to do more lives. It's this just happened to be, I was in the office and I was like, okay, I'm going to go live. It's one of those spur of the moment things that's not planned. So, but thank you. I do want to say I'm grateful. I hear all these people are saying thank you to me, but part of, and I'll give you insight, part of why I do these lives is it feels really good. It feels really good that everybody enjoys it. And so it's a little self-serving, in that sense that I know, it fills my cup too, and I enjoy it. The fact that people can take something from it and they can implement it and do something and then they enjoy it and they enjoy the videos and the fact that, the subscribers and you guys are just really, really supportive. So I want to say thank you to everybody out there. And I will definitely do, I'll do this again. I'll do more. But I hope everyone has a wonderful night. And don't forget that wait list. Sign up for the email or put your email in for the wait list, daduniversity.com. All right. Love everybody. See you soon.